Thanks for joining us for a very special episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We bring to you Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover Overtime. An extra special episode every now and then where we bring you our thoughts on what's going on in the NFL world outside of our preview and review episodes that happen across the season. Myself, Byron and Joe thought we were a bit limited in what we could share and what we could say when we were talking through the previews and reviews every week. So why not just bang in an extra episode every now and then? And this is how our Overtime series was created. This is the first episode, and this episode we're going to focus on the power rankings. Where have we got all 32 teams ranked after 6 weeks of the season, heading into week 7? We're a third of the way through. Let's see who we've got ranked and where. Joe's going to lead the way on this one. Love it when you're in the driving seat, Joe. Do you want to give some context about how we got to this point?
Yeah, so it was fairly simple. We all just created our list through the first 6 weeks where each team is now, not really looking for the end of the year, more or less where we're ranking them at this point. We all did it independently, so there's no cheating from Paul as usual to look at our how we've been doing. So yes, it was really interesting. And then, I added up all the scores and then we ranked them, based on where we were. There's a few ties, but I'll chat about them when we get to them and how we've ranked them. So let's get going. So we'll go from 32 down to 1. So we're doing block of 8. So the first 8 teams. So no surprise at number 32, we have the Carolina Panthers. At 31, we have the Cleveland Browns. At 30, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. At 29, we have the Tennessee Titans. At 28, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. At 27, we have the New England Patriots. At 26, we have the Dolphins. And at 25, we have the LA Rams. So, gents, they're the bottom 8. I don't think there was too many surprises when I was doing this. I think we all more or less had these teams in the bottom 8. So let's just quickly chat about the Panthers. We'll just, because me and Byron had the bottom. Paul, you had them 31, and we can bring in the Browns in this because you had the Browns 32. So what made you do the Panthers 31 and the Browns 32 in that way?
I mean, and it's an odd thing to say, but I think there's slightly more hope for the Panthers. I mean, how they've been so far as well. The last couple of weeks maybe been in more games, been a bit more competitive. So they had that lightning rod win with Andy Dalton. I know it's not been great since, but I just think they've got a bit more than Cleveland have. So, and even more so now, I guess this is a great point to talk about it. The Cleveland Browns have just traded away Amari Cooper this afternoon to the Buffalo Bills. If that's not a sign of a team giving up, I don't know what is. But not much to separate them, but I just had the Panthers over the Browns barely.
I don't know if you saw the great stat. I think now they've traded away Cooper. I think it's just the defender's the only player who's got more than one touchdown for the Browns this year. So yes, not too hopeful. I'll just say we ranked these before some of these trades went down. So we'll talk about the Browns. Byron, you had them at 29th, so I had them at 31st. So I had them where they ended. So why did you have them slightly higher than maybe some of the teams below them? Was that because of the Browns or just the other teams? That was good.
Slightly because the Browns' defense is still okay, whereas so I had them at 29. So I had the Panthers, Jags, and Dolphins. The Dolphins have been hopeless. The Panthers have been, we're saying have been a bit closer. The Panthers' point differential is minus 100. The next worst is 65. Like, they have been really, really, really awful, and that's with winning a game as well. The Browns are only 1-5 as well, but I think the Dolphins have looked absolutely hopeless on both sides of the ball. The Jags, I think there's maybe more shoots of life for the Jags than the Browns, but at this point, I think one of them's more likely to lose a head coach next week, and he's going nowhere fast. And neither of them are going anywhere fast, but I think the Browns have just shown more competency on one side of the ball than the Jags or the Dolphins have, and including the Panthers on any sides of the ball. It's picking at nits on things that are full of nits, I guess, so kind of the opposite of that. But it's digging for rare slices of any kind of positive in the muck, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense. So we might as well talk about the Dolphins now. Me and you, Paul, we had them at 26, and Byron had them at 30, so that's where the difference why the Dolphins came up. It was really close from the 26th to the 29th. There was 3 points in it between three of us. They're all pretty close. Yeah, I was get from your point of view why you got the Dolphins at 26, similar to me.
Yeah, I kind of felt like, again, just where they have. I know other teams have had to deal with it as well, but to have what's happened with Tua so early on in the season, and yes, it wasn't great before that, kind of a game and a half or a game and three quarters, through, there were signs that they were going to be struggling anyway. Yeah. And I think that the fact that I was critical of Mike McDaniel. I felt they kind of maybe still should have found ways to win a couple of games anyway. They've got one of those wins. I think it just keeps them then in a position where Tua is going to come back at some point. They are going to be a lot better. They still have some unbelievable offensive weapons that when you just look at the teams around them on that list, that they don't even have they've got nobody near the quality of players that they have. So I feel there's more like there's still the opportunity for life in the Dolphins, whereas I look at the teams below them and I don't think there's the opportunity for those teams to have life the way I rank them. So yeah, I think the Dolphins will still be relevant much later into the season where those other teams below them won't. So that's why I kind of had them at that mid-20s number.
Yeah, that's why I had them that high as well. Similar, just because the other teams below just felt there wasn't as much hope and it felt more dreary. It is nuts that probably going into the season we probably would have had the Dolphins top 12, top 10, but then they've slid down quite a long way, and it feels like a waste of season, especially with all their talent on offense. Has anyone got much to say about the Jags? We all had them. I actually had them at 28. While Byron had them 31. Paul, you had them at 30. I had the Jags probably a little bit higher. You know what? I think it was tricky from the Jags down the bottom five. I think it was just the Trevor. Well, I'm not the biggest Trevor fan, but I still think he's played okay this year, and I think a few of the others below them, they've not had that. And I think they're a team who could turn it, like if they get a new head coach, could they turn it around and they've looked good. But yeah, Byron, you had them 31 and Paul, you're 30. Is it just a dreadful year and giving up hope, or is it?
I mean, I just saw them live and in person a few days ago, and now I've had another day. I cannot believe how bad they are. So now I've had another day to think about it, like just process what I watched at Spurs the other day. I honestly cannot believe how bad they are. For it, even, we talked about it in the video. I was like, Nevin Engram had a relatively big game on his return from injury, but makes the mistake that kills the game for them. Gabe Davis dropping touchdowns. I know he caught. I think he caught two, but dropped a couple of like the players you're expecting to be able to trust and letting them down. They are just a mess. And I'll save it for the preview. I think they'll get back, and the Patriots will beat them this week, and that'll be the end of Doug Peterson. And then maybe they might get on a bit of a run, but they are unbelievably bad. And this was a team that was 8-3 less than 12 months ago, and was going, maybe there's a sneaky chance to get the number one seed in the AFC. Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah, so fragile. I do say, like, as well, like, to me, Panthers are a clear 32. And then of this grouping, I think the Rams have obviously been hit most by injuries, but I think, to be fair, like, I think you could throw a blanket over Dolphins to Browns and be like, these are just bad football teams. So, like, yes, I had the Jags below the Raiders and, below the Patriots, for example, but I wouldn't be stunned to see the Jags beat either of them in a given week. I just think all of them are kind of a little rudderless and just playing really, really, really poor football right now.
Yeah, I agree. And similar, yeah, like a lot of the teams just looking at the ranks. Yeah, I had the Titans at 30. You're slightly higher, Byron, at 26. Again, not much higher. We had all the bottom 7. I just had them that low at 30 just because it's tricky, because the first 2 games I thought, this Titans team can be something. And then it's just gone disaster zone. And where you came to this year to be like, is Will Levis the guy? Could he just be a quarterback? I never thought he was going to be like an amazing quarterback, but could he be like a Tannehill, that kind of, franchise quarterback where you're probably not going to win much, but you might make the playoffs every now and again. But he just feels like that's been a disaster, and where they are and where they're moving forward with the new head coach and the GM, it's not done too much the last 2 years. Yeah, I'm worried about the Titans. I'm not quite sure where they're going to go, and yeah, really disappointing. And how they just don't trust Levis. I think that was the worst thing about, especially last week, where there could be 3rd and 15. And, if you've got a good quarterback, you say, can you try and make that? But they're just doing screen after screen and just not doing anything. And you sent the Calvin Ridley targets, 8 targets, which weren't really 8 targets. And it's a bit dire. So I just wonder, if you had them 26, was any what put them over the others, or is it just, again, you just picked and choose at that point?
Well, I think they're not a good team, clearly. I think the defense is maybe not awful. I think it's worse than the Browns on paper, but I think how they're performing. So, for example, I know they've played a game less with the bye week, but they've given up less points this year than the 49ers, who aren't, perfect defense and not number one this year, certainly. But I think that's telling. They've given up less points than the Ravens. Their point differential is -14, which isn't in the bottom 10, I don't believe. It might be bottom 10 actually total. So again, they're certainly not competing this year. They're not doing. Their offense is terrible. Tony Pollard's like a bright spot, but the O-line hasn't been fixed with Callahan coming in. Will Levis looks Jameis is most wacky. The offense is just completely out of sync. But I do think the defense isn't spectacular, but I think the defense is pretty solid relative to the teams around them. So that's why I just put them a little above these other absolute tire fires.
It's crazy, giving up the fewest yards a game in the NFL. Titans defense.
Well, it helps when Will Levis is giving you the ball back here, there, and everywhere. Yeah. So you don't have to go on long drives. But I mean, they've still got a relatively low point differential despite that. So again, that's kind of just what bumped them up for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that. So the Patriots and Raiders got the same score. I ranked the Patriots higher just because you two had the Patriots higher than the Raiders. So that's how I've just done it. If there's a tie, just out the 3 of us, which 2 rated the team is higher. We all had. You guys had Patriots to 27, fired the Raiders 27, and you both had the Raiders 28. So basically, where they were. Any comments on them 2 teams, or just they are where they are? And
I think the Patriots have got the most chance to move into the next 8. I don't think the Raiders have got much chance this year of moving into that next group of 8. Just based on Drake May looks kind of fun. The defense has got weapons on it, even if they're not performing. Whereas I think the Raiders, obviously Devontae Adams moved today to New York Jets. It's Brock Bowers and no one else on offense, it feels like, and Max Crosby and no one else on defense. So I just don't think there's room for the Raiders to become a top 24 team. The Patriots maybe do with Drake May if he can continue looking good, if he can build his connections with his receivers, maybe. But that's all it is for me. It was one place. That was it.
I just split them with, I think, right now, and maybe this will change as more weeks go on, but I sort of put more value in that Patriots win against the Bengals in week 1, the Raiders win against the Ravens in week 2. But I think as we get further down the season, that Raiders win against the Ravens in week 2 will look like more of a what the fucking hell game than the Patriots Bengals did. But that was it for me. And I think Drake May, what we saw the other day, could be fun, and match give that team a chance in more of the games as well. And maybe if he was in a bit earlier, Patriots might have 2 wins or 3 wins. Who knows?
Or he might be out for the season,
or he could be dead.
The final 2 we have a chat about the Rams. So there was a big gap between Rams and the Dolphins. It was 11 points between, and they're pretty close to everyone who are just above them. Byron, you had the Rams at 25, I had them 24, Paul, you had 22. I guess it's just been injuries, which has just hurt them, where when you don't have your main 2 wide receivers, and even it feels like everywhere they've just got injured and they're just not produce it. And again, it's another team who managed to beat the 49ers and has a big wins, but then also absolutely can't beat, teams that they should be winning because I think both of us or all of us had them in the playoffs. I know at least two of us had them in
the division.
Yeah, so it has been disappointing. So yeah, I think it's just been the injuries. Has anyone else got any more comments about the Rams?
More again, just that win over the Niners and the fact that the coach, they have a better coach, I think, than those other teams around them by a mile. And again, similar to the Dolphins situation in terms of they have a lot of those players to come back, so they're going to be miles better. And again, they have a quarterback in Matthew Stafford that can win you games on his own. So yeah, that's why I had the Rams, and I'm kind of thinking it might be similar to last year. I think they might need to squeeze out another win while they've still got a lot of injured players. But yeah, and I think they can go on a run and get in the mix for a wild card spot. The division's probably gone, even though they're only a couple of games back. But yeah, I think it'll have to be a wild card spot. But I think they could reel off 6 or 7 wins because they can be that good.
And after their bye, just had the bye. So coming up, they do have Vegas, Miami, New England, Seattle, in the next few games. So that is a good opportunity if there is players returning from injury to fitness. Then again, on talent of the 53, they're not 24, well, not 25. Sorry, they're much more. They're probably more likely in the second page here, not even the third page. So, but we're judging them on what they are. So.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next 8. So at 24, we have the New York Giants, 23, the Arizona Cardinals, at 22, the Denver Broncos, 21, the Indianapolis Colts, at 20, we have the New Orleans Saints, at 19, we have the Dallas Cowboys, at 18, we have the New York Jets, and at 17, we have the Seattle Seahawks. So this is where it starts. Some of these get a bit more interesting about how we rank them. For you, Byron, so me and Paul had the Giants 25. You had them at 20.
Yeah.
I was surprised at that just because obviously the defensive line's played a lot better the last 2 weeks, but there's still that issue with the offense where it struggled against the Bengals team who feel like they couldn't stop anyone until Sunday night. So why did you have them so high at 20?
It's a good question. I'm looking at who I had ahead and below them. Essentially, I think the defense has played better than the defenses I had below them. So, just for the sake of reading them out, they're all on the screen here. Colts, Broncos, Cardinals, Cowboys. I think are all... Again, I don't think the Giants are a great team, but I think offensively, when they've had Malik Neighbors, have looked competent. Tyron Tracy's standing out already, and Singletary's been fine enough. O-line is still an issue. But defensively, I think they've been kind of okay. Not great, but certainly not woeful. Again, looking at the points given up. Giants are giving up 121. Cowboys are giving up 168. Colts 139. Cardinals, I can't find on my sheet, 163. So there's a fairly noticeable drop off there. I can't remember if you want. Broncos have got a better defense on paper. I will give them that, but their offense is absolutely sub Daniel Jones, which isn't polite, just to be clear. So again, I don't love the Giants, but I just think their overall package is a little better than 25, 24.
Yeah, makes sense. We actually all had the Cardinals at 23. Perfect symmetry. I think it's where they should be. They have 1 week where they're playing the top 16, 14 teams, and then the other week where they should be in the bottom 8. I think they're just so up and down, and see where they are going forward. We're moving to the Broncos. The Broncos 22. So I had them at 20. Byron, you had them at 22. Paul, you had them at 24. Below some of these other teams. Is it just Bo Nix and the experience? Because I knew you started to like Bo Nix the last few weeks. Some of the offensive displays and the defense.
Yeah, I think he's been doing a lot better. The defense played well. I think probably it was a big impact of a little bit of recency bias, just how easily the Chargers dismantled them on Sunday, I think. And I know we talked about the Rams are on the last page, but I had the Rams ahead of them. I think more just that impact last week. And if not, and if it had been a closer game or more competitive game, and it was only a 7-point game on the scoreboard, but if it had been a more competitive game, I might have had him up another couple of places. But yeah, I just think kind of while Bodie, I think he's going to go through that rookie thing of making forward progress and then take a backward step. And sadly, they don't have enough elsewhere to kind of make up for that, or that have less of an impact than maybe you'd want it to. So we'll see with them. But yeah, I think that's probably fair. And you know what? If they were kind of where they are, you got them 22, so we've got them 22 in our list combined, but maybe if at the start of the season you got to a third of the way and that's kind of where they fell, I think the Denver Broncos would probably have taken that.
Better than I would have expected.
Yeah, definitely. The next team is like one of the weirdest teams. The fact they're currently in a playoff spot, they're 3-3. They've got more wins than quite a few teams above them. But you guys ranked them above 21. I ranked them 22, so all very similar. So what's the Colts got to do to get higher, guys? They've won 3 games. They're in the playoffs. It's strange that we ranked them so low. They're just a weird team to try and figure out where they should sit. 2
words for them to be ranked higher: Joe Flacco. Keep playing Flacco, and there are 3, not massively higher, but 3 or 4 places higher. I also think I don't think we talked about it yesterday when we did the review. By all accounts, Anthony Richardson was fit and could have played.
Yeah,
so that's the decision now that they've made.
Well, they have come out and said he will start on Sunday, though.
Mm.
Yeah, they said he'll start on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. It's easily said on Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought your 2 words were going to be injury report for them to be highest since they pissed you off so much last week. Really, they were playing loose and fast, and people with dodgy backs suddenly catching high catch balls and landing on it and getting hit, but seems to be fine going forward. But yeah, they're a strange team. I feel like they could. There's always a team which you always expect to slide away, but they just end up just sticking around, and it's usually because the schedule. It's usually the Steelers, that kind of team, who just ends up just like sneaking into the playoffs or there and thereabouts, and just like starts creeping up these power rankings. But I think 21's a good spot for them right now until I think Anthony Richardson starts showing us something, and that he's a guy, because you can't just keep going back and forth. Because I think they're going to play Anthony Richardson.
Yeah,
but does that go into wins? And with his injury record, it's a little bit trickier.
He's going to get let's say he does play Byron, like they've said, he's going to get hurt sooner rather than later. I think for the benefit of their season, this might sound mean, wishing people to get hurt apart from Jerry Jones in a helicopter crash, that it'd be better for them if he's going to get up and end up getting injured, that he does get injured sooner rather than later, because you've got a chance to win with Flacco. You don't have a chance to win with Anthony Richardson, is my thought.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure that's fully true, but yeah. I think he's had a rough start to the season, but I think there's still hope for him. They did beat the Bears with Anthony Richardson playing well. He threw 2 interceptions in that game. He didn't play well. I'm being flippant. I don't think it's as cut and dry as that, but I think they're probably better placed to win with Joe Flacco right now. I do agree on that. I just don't think it's all or nothing, essentially. And yeah, I do feel a bit for the Colts having them this low at 21. But it just doesn't feel like there's been a moment in the Colts season where you're like, okay, I can see it. Feels like the wins have had, you're like, oh, the Colts won. Bloody hell, that's a bit of an upset. I didn't see them winning that game. And I think that's happened 3 times. And the 3 losses I've had, you go, oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, that. And I don't mean like just like retrospectively. I mean like while you're watching the game, it's like, oh, shit, the Colts are actually going to win this game, like against the Steelers and the Bears. It was like, I don't know how they've done it, but...
the defense is awful. It is truly terrible.
Yeah. But what's nuts though, they had the chance to be the Texans first week when they shouldn't be in it. Like they could have won a couple. Them ones where they lost, where it's like, yeah, they probably deserved to lose, but it was also like they could have easily have won them as well. It wasn't like blowout and suddenly like, well, that's.
Well, they've been blown out once this season. They haven't lost by more than a touchdown.
Yeah,
once. Their point differential is 0, which is kind of wild. They're 3-3, and their point differential is 0. Like they should be 16 really on that kind of metric, but. Yeah, I just don't think there's much there, and that's kind of harsh with the record they have. But like I have the Bengals ranked ahead of them, for example, who have a worse record. But I just think if one of them's going to rattle off 7 wins out the next 10, it isn't going to be the Colts.
And this is weird, right? Because they felt like they were getting a lot more out of this team last year.
Yeah.
And they were having to go to plan B at quarterback, and it was Gardner Minshew. And you know what? Gardner Minshew can just get involved in just fucking crazy games. I mean, it looks foolish now, but I backed, obviously, put one of our preseason bets was the Colts to lead the league in sacks, because that they had 53 last year, most in franchise history in the course of a season. That front seven's supposed to be the strength.
Yeah, not
and
quite.
It's been garbage. They're giving up, I think, just short 400 yards a game. I think it's 390 a game. They're giving up 389 and a half to 390 a game. It's abysmal defensively. I think there's only the Colts. There's only the Jaguars and Saints that give up more yards a game.
Yeah. Talking about the Saints, they're the next team up at 20. We all had them very similar. Paul, you had them at 20. Byron at 19. I had them at 21. So yeah, averaging out at 20. I feel this is a team who are lucky to be there just because how they started the season. I think that just plays back in your mind where you're like, oh yeah, they can still, blow out the Cowboys and, how they started. But the last few games, obviously Derek Carr being injured is massive. See when he comes back. But that defense has definitely took a step back last week.
Yeah, that win against the Cowboys just doesn't have the same value attached to it now, I don't think, because everybody's just going to fucking come to Dallas and blow out the Cowboys. So I don't think there's anything special there now. That maybe when we thought, we were shouting Clint Kubiak's name, how great they were offensively and all the motion that they were in and stuff like that. I mean, they've scored points in most games, haven't they, to be fair? I mean, up 27 in a quarter the other day. It's just they didn't put up any points in any other quarter. And yeah, just the defense just seems now, I don't know, seems like you can get at them all of a sudden. And obviously the Bucs put 50 on them this past week and ran all over them. So yeah, worrying times to say. They just really need to get a win to just kind of change momentum. And they've got the opportunity to do that this week against the Broncos. So
yeah, but especially how the other two teams are doing in their division at the top. Yeah. They're going in the complete opposite direction to the other two, which it feels like that division. You probably got to, you got to at least be getting. I think the team to win that division is probably 9 or 10 wins. Yeah. So you got to be there to obviously get in the playoffs as well. And is he going to be coming down to these tie breaks, which, against the Bucs, who are one of the big teams, it's
I think that thing that we talked about during the season previews as well is around there's definitely only one team from the NFC South that's going to get in the playoffs. I think you can rubbish that notion now. I don't think it would be a surprise at all for 2 teams from the NFC South to get in, because kind of is a bit
but everyone's just going to get through from the NFC North. I think it's
all 4 teams from the North.
Yeah. So talking about a team you just mentioned about who keeps getting blown out at home, the Cowboys. Another surprise, if you said this at the start of the season, to be 19th. They were just ahead of the Saints, and there was a gap between them and the ones above. Byron, you had them all the way down at 24, so right at the bottom of this list. Paul had them 18, I had them 17. Yeah, why so low, Byron? Is it, because it's your team and you're just so devastated, or do you truly believe they're worse than the teams below them on this list?
I mean, yeah, I do. I think I said this on the recap yesterday. Like, they're fraudulent 3-3. Do I have them below the Colts? In fact, yeah, I do. Which feels harsh, but they can't defend and they can't score in the red zone. And even Brandon Aubrey's missed a kick. Like, there's nothing. I mean, one kick maybe, but
Brandon Aubrey, that one.
Yeah, but nothing against Van Norbury, obviously. But I mean, they've got the 3rd worst scoring defense in the league. They just can't stop anybody doing anything on offense. On their defense, on the other team's offense. And they've got no run game to speak of, which, I mean, all these things we knew going into the season. I didn't have the Cowboys making the playoffs. I don't know if we didn't do power rankings preseason. Maybe we should next year. I don't know if I'd have had them 25 or 24, sorry, where I had them, but I wouldn't have had them top 12. I just think they're sadly a top-heavy talent team, but you take out Dak and CeeDee Lamb, who aren't connecting this year. Parsons has been injured, and then after that, you've kind of got a lot. I mean, some of the DBs, to be fair, I'm missing out there. I'm not going to name every single player who's above average to good, but they lost a lot of pieces in the off season on the D line, in linebackers, which was a weakness anyway, and they just didn't replenish any of it. I think Kupiri's been fine as a rookie center, but the rookie tackle, whose name it's gone off my head, Paul, you can tell me. First round. Jalen Guyton, yeah, thank you very much. Is a liability. He's either letting Dak get sacked or it's a flag. Like there is two plays. And there was no leadership on the pitch, off the pitch, in the executive suite. There was just a team waiting to sack the head coach, and I think we're going to see more weeks like we've just seen them. We're going to see big wins. So yeah, I think, like I said the other day, I think they were fraudulent 3-3. The defense is laughable. For all we give up of losing Dan Quinn was the explosiveness, the takeaways, the snatching the ball. We were meant to get from Zimmer incredible fundamentals and the basics right, and that isn't there. Who are drafting for a few years and bad contract management, and you've got a team that isn't competing in what I don't think is a great NFC East. But yeah, they're not in any contention to make the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dallas.
Lost 9 stars.
Apologize to me, Dallas, in fact. I'm the one
who's lost 9 stars and didn't really replace any of them. And still had problems that you needed to fix that you've just not. You can just mention any on that old line. Terrence Steele's. I know you say Guyton's a liability, but the least is to hope that he will learn and get better.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Terrence Steele's just a fucking joke. I think I could beat Terrence Steele.
I'd love to see it.
I'm 6'2", 12.5 stone. I think I can beat Terrence Steele.
Good spin move, wily.
Yeah, I think I could just bull rush him.
I'd love to see it.
He's so bad. And yeah, the depth on the D line, massive. Just pieces like Dorrance Armstrong, who's doing well in a similar role with the Commanders. Yeah. Dante Fowler's also gone there. Just pieces that help you out a bit. And sadly, then the stars haven't turned up at all. That CeeDee Lamb, Parsons has been pretty anonymous. Lawrence, even before his injury, anonymous. They had a good day against the Browns, didn't they? But again, looking back, even though they won that game and won that game,
Browns are 31st in our rankings again. So
yeah, they're fucking shit, aren't they? So yeah, and just a bit that made me laugh, and we'll talk about Amari Cooper when we get to the Bills a bit more. But the Browns just got more for Amari Cooper than the Cowboys got when they traded him to the Browns two and a half years ago.
Yeah, when he was in his peak, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that about bad off-field management, I was saying? Yeah.
Jerry Jones's interview this morning, I dropped it in our group before, but he does that piece on the radio every Tuesday. He's just, I won't say he's lost his mind. He lost his mind a while ago, but he was just threatening the radio presenters that he was going to get them fired. It was just a fucking wild ride for 5 minutes there.
Fun times to be that. Yeah, so fun times to that. So the next two teams actually had the same score, but we ranked. So when the Jets at 18, Seahawks, Byron's new favorite team, went higher just because me and Byron had them higher than the Jets. So the Jets, I had them at 19. And Paul, you had them at 15. So that was like the higher and lower. I had them just so low just because how inept they've looked. And it feels like they just cost themselves each week. And what you expect them to be good at, it's not translated. Is the 15 bump to do with Devontae Adams, the trade happening today? So, yeah, we'll speak on that. Yeah, news, which was, I think, a conditional 3, which can go up to a 2, which I've seen. So, the Jets get the wide receiver, which has been mentioned. I wonder if he'll go straight into the wide receiver 1 or if it'll be wide receiver 2 behind Wilson, because it feels like they've been forcing it to Wilson a lot this year. So I'm curious how they're going to work that tandem and see if Lazard keeps dropping and either drop easy ones or catch Hail Marys.
Well, whatever ankle or hamstring injury he had allegedly. It's all will all of a sudden have cleared up. I admit 15. So the trade's a part of it because I think that helps them open up a bit more on offense. We've seen and a combination of their performance last night on Monday night. I actually thought they played quite well last night against the Bills, and how they didn't win the game is beyond me. Just some crazy special team stuff going on and a bit of inefficiency in the red zone. But I think on the main part, they played pretty well. Rodgers looked better. Defense was good again. They kept the Bills in check. And I mean, what did Zerline miss from? Was it one from 43, one from 30 something they smashed the post from?
Two real makeable ones. Yeah, I can't remember the distances, but
I would say the only good thing what Dallas has done is probably get rid of Tyron Smith because he looked not great last night. He was whiffing on a few things, and again, he's another one where he's definitely a candidate for the Hall of Fame, but he's just having maybe a year too far, and this could be his last year because he was getting beat quite a lot, and when they're doing an end around for Brees, it just runs straight past the defender, not blocking him. It's not looking great. I had to put those just the offensive line still struggling, and I know the defense played better, but the Bills have struggled, but they've managed to score. I think it was the first 3 drives, and it definitely slowed them down in the second half. Compared to the other teams, I just had the Seahawks a little bit higher, just because. Yeah, the Jets, Seahawks are 16. So yes, I think it's just the Geno effect, and I think they've just got the weird team. They should have it on offense again. It's another one who doesn't have the greatest offensive line. I think if they had a decent offensive line, they would be such a dangerous team just because of all the weapons and Geno. I know their defense is banged up, especially the defensive line. So, but I do like Mike McDonald's scheme, which I think he can put teams in trouble. And again, they're a weird team who were 3-0, and we'll think, is this going to be the team from the NFC West? And then they've come back to the pack, which 17 is probably about right. What did you have? You had them 16 as well, Byron. Obviously, your pet team, Seahawks. Do you think 17, 16 is the right mark then?
Yeah, I wanted to have them higher, but the O-line's just so bad that even I can't put them higher than that. The teams above them, I think, are just more well-rounded. They might not have Geno Smith, but they do have better O-lines, essentially, which is stopping Geno hit his potential, really. I think, like you say, up and down, great start, but it was a very soft schedule. I mean, you can only beat what's there, et cetera, but, we are trying to project, kind of play it as if everyone played on neutral field who would win these games. And I wanted to put them higher, but I just couldn't, in good conscience, jam them at 7 just to, play the rankings game. So, I think it's about right for them,
Ruin all the credibility of the show if you'd have done that, Byron.
Exactly,
weirdly, I had him at 19, so I had him below the Cowboys. I had at 18, just because somehow I think that Seahawks O-line is worse than the Cowboys one, and I think I could take on the whole O-line. Rush one.
I'm just to
rush one. I'm going to get to Geno 5-on-1. I don't think they could take me.
You accusing you have worries about credibility of the show, and you're ranking that Seahawks O-line. Oh, you're ranking a O-line ahead of the Cowboys.
I thought you were going to say the fact that the credibility that he could take on the Cowboys defensive line, the Seahawks defensive line, and the Jets probably as well.
Get a meat and potato slice in him, and he'll be checking them all on. Yeah, I've no doubts about that. That's not my problem. It's about I think he could take on the Cowboys O-line with 2 tight ends attached. It just could only do the Seahawks 5. I can't believe you have the Cowboys ahead of the Seahawks. That's insane.
I mean, barely. Like, it's one spot. It's just,
I haven't made apart.
Before we move on, is any more points on the Adams trade? Anyone wants to make while we're here? Or
I think it's a good move for the Jets. Like, it's. I know it's another. Aaron Rodgers has got another one of his buddies, but considering the list of buddies that you could get him, that should have been the number one the whole time to go get that guy. I just think it opens up Garrett Wilson more. I think it opens up the running game more. Yeah, Devontae Adams he's not looked bad, has he, while he's played for the Raiders? You know what I mean?
He's looked bad for years. He's outside of his rookie season where he was terrible. Devontae Adams has been a top 5-ish receiver in the NFL, including this year. It's no way it can be a negative.
So they've got the opportunity to get, like I say, to get him involved, and I think that offense then can do a lot more. which helps which will help the defense stay off the field a bit more. So they can be even more effective when they're on it. It's I think okay. I still think they can break this playoff hoodoo. However many years it is, 13 years, wherever we're at now, and they can still do it from the position that they're in.
And I do like it for Garrett Wilson might not become a target hog as he was, but I know you guys probably don't get the Manning cast where you are, but every time the Jets have like a third down, Bill Belichick is just like, cover Wilson, just cover Wilson, cover Wilson. Then Garrett Wilson gets the ball and gets the first down. He's like, why does it not cover Wilson? It is absolutely incredible. I think he would like to be a coach again.
Yeah, I can't imagine Williams getting too many more balls from Aaron Rodgers after what happened.
They're open to trading him, is already the report. So
is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll get probably a 7th, if that.
Maybe, yeah. He's probably going to end up in fucking Dallas as a 7-4 lineman.
Yeah.
He's big.
Right, let's move to the top half. So we'll do 16 to 9. So at 16, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. At 15, we have the LA Chargers. 14, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. 13, the Pittsburgh Steelers. 12, the Atlanta Falcons. 11, the Chicago Bears. 10, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And 9, the Washington Commanders. So we'll start off with the Bengals because this was a surprise for me. I think, Paul, you skewed this one. Me and Byron had them 18, and you had them all the way up at 10, which obviously brought them to 16. So why did you have the Bengals at 10? That was
a big shock. The podcast, please.
Yeah, so I mentioned the other day I was actually a bit more worried for them after the Giants game.
Where did you have them before? 5.
I probably had them like 8 or something, yeah. I'm a bit worried for them after the Giants game because while we talked about so much about they just need a win. They need to just win. It was win or bust. And they got the win, but it really just wasn't pretty against a pretty poor Giants team. But I suppose they're still taking a lot out of the performances against the Chiefs and against the Ravens, and they've still got a lot of these big games to come. They just need to find a way to start winning those, which is a lot easier said than done. But in that offense, I still believe that offense can carry them. It's going to have to do a lot of carrying because the defense is fucking atrocious. Yeah. But maybe it might start taking some forward steps. But yeah, I believe in the offense. I believe in Joe Burrow. Still got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And the games where they've clicked, I think they've shown they can beat those big teams. They just can't afford any more slip-ups against any of the teams that they're fully expected to beat. But yeah, I still think they're a top 10 team.
Yeah, I just worry that it feels like they only turn up when they're playing big teams. It's like whenever they play teams who they're expected to absolutely put pummeling to, they just don't show up. The Patriots, the Giants, and I think they're just lucky that they've played against teams who got inept offenses because. Against the Giants. Yeah, I think they actually probably slipped further down for me to 18 because of that Giants performance. I was expecting them to, put a beating on them, get up to 30 points, try and flex their muscles. I know the Giants have got a good D-line, but it's not, they're not the scariest defense they're going to face. And they're just lucky that Danny Dimes doesn't show up in prime time or at home. So that could have easily been like the Patriots lost they had at the start of the year. If Chase Brown, if that fumble didn't go out of bounds and the Giants get that back, we're talking about a team who are 1-5 and more or less done. So that's why I had them at 18, just because it feels like they're on a tightrope where 1 or 2 bad losses, which I think's in their bag of tricks, then their season's done. Just because I don't guarantee they'll beat the teams when they play like the Ravens again. I just don't trust them anymore, just because that defense is not where it used to be.
Yeah, that's the inverse. I do trust them, I think, weirdly, and that's the thing versus the other teams the other teams that I had them, I suppose, in and around, which was obviously a lot higher than where you guys had them. So yeah, I mean, like even just to look at just a couple of shouts, like I trust the Bengals even now more than I trust the Jets, than the Seahawks. You had them both ahead at the Chargers. You had them ahead, Eagles, so on. I just trust them a bit more. I just trust them more than those teams.
There you go. Well, we'll move on to the Chargers. I think, yeah, Byron, you had the highest. You had them at 13. I had them at 15. Paul, you 17. Yeah, Byron, I trust the Chargers now, just how they played. So how come you had them so high at 13, the hardball way?
Yeah, a big part of it is I think he's got him really playing on defense, which I think the offense, we kind of knew what we were going to get coming into season. It's going to be a lot of running the ball. Justin Herbert's going to probably be really efficient, but might not be explosive, might not be, fantasy gold like he has been in years gone by. But I think they've given up the least points in the NFL on defense, with a defense that was, I don't have the numbers to be fair for 2023, but by the end of 2023 had completely gone in the tank. Joey Bosa isn't an impact player anymore. He's probably more of a hindrance with his contract than he is a benefit at this point. But yeah, defensively, he's got them ticking immediately. In a weird, it's never going to happen this year, but like Joe Alt could be in Rookie of the Year consideration with how he's played generally. And Herbert's still pulling out the big plays where he needs to. We had an absolute beauty to Lad McConkey on third down the other day. That there's not many quarterbacks, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 that could make that throw and would have the balls to go for that throw. So yeah, I think they're less exciting than they've been any time in the Justin Herbert era, but they're probably the best Justin Herbert team that's been because they are so well-rounded, and I think they're just going to get better from here. So yeah, that's why I have them so high. Seems like Jim Harbaugh's basically made an instant impact.
Yeah, they were 28th ranked in total defense last year, in 2023. And now I think they're probably 5th, 6th, or 7th in terms of yards giving up a game, but obviously giving up the least points. So he's done, there's no doubt he's done a fantastic job. A job I didn't think was possible to do in such a short space of time. I definitely thought there'd be improvements and signs. Just because
I didn't have them in the playoffs, so like I certainly didn't see them. I thought maybe more like the last slide, I guess, probably where I thought they'd be, because they're not a hugely talented team.
I think they have a nice
really
schedule. Yeah. I think they do have a nice schedule as well.
Well, they will, because they were so terrible last year.
No, of course. When you look at the next, they got the Cardinals, Saints, Browns, Titans, and they got the Bengals and Ravens. They could easily win the next 4 games, and they're going into them games being 7-2. And you can afford to lose to the Bengals, Ravens. Yeah, they've got the Bengals, Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs, Bucks. But then they end with Broncos, Patriots, Raiders. So if they win the games they should win, they're a 10-win team, which I don't think we would have expected coming in. So the Chargers they had the same amount of points what we ranked them with the Eagles. Just that me and Paul had the Eagles higher than the Chargers. I had them just once. I had the Eagles at 14. You had them at 15, Byron and Paul. You had them at 16. Yeah, Eagles at 14. I think Eagles were a weird team for me. I couldn't figure out where to put them because they're a team where it feels like they should be a lot better what they're producing when you look at their players. Obviously, again, AJ Brown back and Smith will make a huge difference. Barkley started the year on fire in the last few games. It's not been amazing. Defense is, again, I don't know where to put my finger on the Eagles right now. I think 14 is a perfect spot where they could easily make the playoffs, but they could also collapse. They're a weird team, and they've got that weird head coach, Nick Sirianni.
Tucked his tail in between his legs yesterday, didn't he? And apologized today. Sorry, and apologized. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Might have been on yesterday.
Monday, yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine he was told to apologize.
Yeah, I do think though this is like a great example of, to be fair, if you swap the head coaches of the last 2 teams we talked about, the Eagles and the Chargers will probably be like 20th, and the Eagles will probably be like 5th. But head coaching matters an awful lot. I do think they're starting to improve on defense. I think Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have started to play better the last few weeks, as opposed to the first couple where they looked they look like rookies, so can't punish them for that. But they have improved kind of drastically the last 3 weeks, I think. And yeah, getting back to full strength, I think, is a huge one for Philly because, you lose your 2 best players at one position and you're really going to see it. I think Jalen Hurts isn't a quarterback who's going to carry a weak pass catching group.
Mm-hmm. So the next 4 teams are all very close. So we had the Steelers and Falcons on the same points, and the Falcons were just above because I had the Steelers 12 and the Falcons 11. Paul, you had the Steelers 11, the Falcons 14th. Oh, sorry, Byron had them, and then Paul, you had the Falcons 12 and the Steelers 14. So two of us had the Falcons slightly higher. I think they're both doing what we expected them to do. The Steelers doing this typical Steelers year, beating bad teams and just doing enough on defense to carry their offense. Obviously, the big news came out today, which I was surprised that Russ is apparently going to be starting on Sunday. Not quite sure why. I don't think he's going to give them anything else. And you've just had Fields' legs, which I think I always wanted Fields over. And the Falcons have certainly, after that first week, have certainly improved and looked a lot better. And they just need to keep it going. And I can see that them being a team which keeps actually climbing this list. It's just that defense is still not amazing where I'll not be confident. I don't know if you've got any shout out for the Steelers and Falcons. Do you expect them to be 13-12? I mean, we all had them very similar.
Yeah, I'm shocked a little bit with this. Just the decision from the Steelers. It feels like doesn't really feel like a Mike Tomlin thing to do. You've got, and it's not. I think it's not riding the hot hand because Justin Fields. It's not as if he's been lighting up teams.
No.
It's just weird to take, especially when they've struggled at times to run the ball. I know the last game they managed to run the ball better against the Raiders, but at times they have struggled to run the ball, and you have the option of Field. So why wouldn't you keep it? It just seems a very, very odd thing to do. You could only have the thought that Russell Wilson can open things up in the passing game, but we've didn't really see that from him in Denver, did we? So yeah, unless he thinks it's a way to be able to get more out of George Pickens, who's been notably terrible. Unless that's the thought process, it just seems a bit of a strange one because I think there's just more risk involved in it. Because I think kind of Fields has done well. I think maybe apart from the Colts game, he's done a pretty good job in terms of not turning over the ball and letting the defense just do what it needs to do. So yeah, it seems a bit of an odd one from the Steelers, and I know I think I maybe submitted this before we heard that, Joe. So had I known beforehand that they were going to be moving to Russ, I probably would have knocked them down 3 or 4 spots because I think you're asking the defense to do a lot more lifting than it's already doing.
We already had the Steelers 14, so would you put them below? Yeah, I can see that. But the Steelers, they've actually managed. I think what the Steelers have done, what a lot of teams wish they could do. They've definitely made that offensive line a lot better. Obviously, drafting well with Zach Frazier, the center in the second round, which I know a lot of teams who passed on him, who needs a center, be kicking themselves right now. I think 13 is great. I can see them making the playoffs again. It's just going to be that kind of year where they'll sneak that seventh spot and then get kicked out on like the Monday evening, play against the Bills. It just feels like it's that kind of year again. So we'll move on to 11 and 11. We had the Bears at 11. Byron, you had them higher than, so me and Paul had them at 13 and you had them at 8. So yeah, why so high? You had them in the top page. Is it the last couple of weeks? It's just,
yeah,
you see a lot more.
I think the defense has been pretty good all season and the offense is getting better by the week. Like we were saying on yesterday's, the review, like the best 4 of the best 5 now, I think, with the Bills actually winning last night. Point differentials are in the NFC North. The Bears are one of those. I know it's not everything, but it's not nothing either. I think after, in my opinion, the top 6 teams in the NFL, I'm not going to name who they are just yet because obviously we've got our thing to come, but I think you can kind of put a thing over 7 through maybe 14, 13 around there as like these are all pretty good teams, but probably not winning the Super Bowl. And I just think with the Bears defense, especially passing defense, and Caleb Williams' ascendancy, / using DeAndre Swift / having a running game utilized correctly, puts the Bears in the top 10 for me.
Yeah, I had them at 13, like I said, and they're definitely a team which I can see going up. I think the last 2 weeks they've shown something, but I just want to see a few more weeks against when they start playing again, especially when they play the NFC North teams. Can they put that together? I think the defense will. It's just can Caleb Williams continue that? It's easy to do against the Panthers and the Jaguars, but can they do it against the big teams? That's why I'm 13. But again, I struggled. I was up and down with teams like the Steelers, Falcons, like the Bucks. Like you said, it's muddled, that kind of thing. But I can see them rising. Yeah, why did you have them at 13, Paul, compared to
the Bears? Yeah, there's there's a little bit around. Look, the offense has been improving, which has been good, and it's been good to see that. It took them a while to get that running game going. It has got going. I just don't think it will just be a straight line up for Caleb Williams. I think he might just have he's still gonna have a few more rocky moments. Not rocky moments as in Sylvester Stallone Rocky. I mean, just like difficult moment and spells of games where he's not playing well, and can that defense still continue to dig him out when he's not played well like they did earlier in the season? I don't know. I think the bit as well was just around, look, we keep saying you can only play who's in front of you. Bears haven't started the division games yet. They don't start the division games until week 11. It's weird. Them
really?
The Steelers. Yeah. The Steelers were the same, and that was a part of what's mentioned about the Steelers, but I forgot to. They don't start their division games until week 11.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get ahead of the game because of how good those other teams are. So, that could be a real bad run, and that's why the Bears need to kind of run the table a little bit, and they have done, just reeled off 3 wins in a row. But week 11, when they play the Packers, and then it's 1, 2, 3, I think 6 in 8, and the other 2 are the Niners and the Seahawks. It's a brutal run to finish the season. So I think that's where we'll see what they're really made of.
So then 10 is the Bucks. I had them 10, or you 11, 5 and 12. And it comes where the Bucks are. I think it's more or less rather probably the team to beat in the NFC South right now, just over the Falcons. Even though the Falcons beat them, I think it was a tosser, but I trust the Bucks a little bit more now they've got a few players.
Yeah,
and then number 9. Go on, sorry, Paul.
Yeah, they've owned that division, haven't they, the last few years, and they're right there again. And Baker fucking Mayfield.
Yeah. And then I think a surprise was how the Commanders didn't make the top 8, just how well they've played. Just out, not by many points. There is a gap between the Commanders and the Bucks and the 6 teams below that. So I have them 8, Paul, you had them 8, and Byron, you had them 10. So yes, it was your 10 which snuck them out. Any reason you had 10? Obviously, where the start of the year, if you said Commanders top 10, I would have been laughing and saying, where's the credibility of this show if we're saying Commanders are a top 10 team, obviously top 9. But we've got them. Any reasons you had them like below some of the, obviously below the Bears, the Packers? Was there like a certain reason or?
Not hugely, no. I must say, like, again, it is picking nits a little bit, but that's, it's the exercise. I just think their defense is outperformed itself a little so far. They have lost Jonathan Allen for the season, which is a huge loss for them. The O-line has outperformed itself as well. And I just think the Packers and the Bears are more well-rounded. They all have equal records. The Bears play the Commanders this Sunday, which should be a really good game, really fun one. Some new tests for Jaden Daniels.
Next week. Bye week for the Bears.
Oh, sorry, yeah. The Bears' next game. Sorry, yeah. I had the Bears scheduled up a few minutes ago. I don't have many Bears in fantasy, thankfully, to notice that already. So, yeah, that next game for the Bears versus the Commanders, don't know the Commanders of this week off the top of my head, but I think that'll be a good litmus test of both teams to see where they're at. But I don't want it to make out like it's an indictment on the Commanders. I do have them 10. Just that's why I haven't been behind the Bears and the Packers.
Yeah, the Commanders are Panthers.
Yeah, Commanders and Panthers. Yeah,
it'll be a nice, easy game coming into that one. Yeah, I can't wait for that game. That's going to be a great game. And I had the Commanders 8 just because even though they lost the Ravens, they could have been blown out of that game if they were if they were chumps or one of these teams where fades away fairly quickly. The fact that they managed to keep up with them. I think the Ravens were fairly comfortable, but the fact that they were still close and it made the game close, and the defense has actually played a lot better the last few weeks. They're certainly becoming an overall team. And is it crazy to say they're probably the favourites to win the NFC East at the minute? I think how they've been playing, good that offense has been.
If they can keep up with the play, they're winning the division. It's just, can they keep it up?
Yeah,
that's the only question for me.
I don't know. I think they played that well. I think they could probably afford to drop off and still win the division weirdly because the Cowboys and Eagles are,
Well, we can ignore the Cowboys. They're not.
Yeah, if you ignore the Cowboys and the Eagles, not necessarily.
The Eagles are only a game back, though. Is kind of my point. Like they're not. Yeah, like I think the Eagles play as they are, they'll probably get to 10 wins. It's just can the Commanders? I think they're their high is so high, but I think it's kind of thin that like a little drop off could lead to a big drop off, if that makes sense. But and we're not just trying to be disingenuous. I'm at 10. I think they're a really good team. If they carry on like they are, they do win the division. Just that's a big if.
Yep. Right, let's do the top 8 teams. So if you're listening and one of your teams is here, the year start off amazingly, and hope it continues. So at 8, we've got the Packers, the Green Bay Packers. At 7, we've got the Buffalo Bills. At 6, we've got the San Francisco 49ers. At 5, we've got the Houston Texans. At 4, we've got the Baltimore Ravens. At 3, the Minnesota Vikings. At 2, the Detroit Lions. And number 1, the reigning 2-time Super Bowl champion, the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's start with the Packers. I had them actually at 6. You guys had them at 9. I didn't just that high just because the defense, how good the defense has been looking the last few weeks. I think they've certainly improved. And I think you're going to have up and down with Jordan Love. But I think he's becoming more consistent. And the fact they've actually got a defense which can win games now certainly helps them. And I just think they've put it more together than some of the other teams. And I think the coaching staff has certainly improved. That the fact you get 2 wins out of Malik Willis is certainly a huge positive, and they certainly can. I think they can improve as well. I think that's what's about the Packers, that they can improve and get better. It doesn't feel like they've hit their peak yet, but they've still been playing well. You guys had them at 9.
If the Packers go on and win the championship this year, win the Super Bowl, we should not forget about how Matt LaFleur got Malik Willis to win 2 football games in the NFL. Yeah. We absolutely should not, because it was quite frankly a ridiculous feat given what we've seen out of Malik Willis before.
Yeah. I don't have any qualms with the Packers at 8. Like I said, I have them at 9. And I fully agree. Like, J.V. McKinney's been a huge add for them. I think he got an interception in his first 5 games, right?
Yeah,
I'm not mistaken. That makes a huge difference, even if Jordan Love is a little erratic. We talked about them on the review yesterday. I love their pass catching group. It's young. It's not being paid. It's diverse. It's got a lot of good skill sets. Josh Jacobs fits in immediately with the offense. I think they're a really good team. And yeah, like I said, I have them at 9, just behind the Bears, but I think that's pretty kind of toss a coin. I think if it was neutral field, you'd have a great game. Expect one to win at home, one to win away.
Yeah, they're certainly in a great position. I certainly think maybe the next draft, they'll be willing to trade a few of them wide receivers because obviously they can't pay them all. They've got their favourites. And there'll certainly be some teams being like, oh, we could have him. And I'll be curious how they fit. They're like Wicks or them kind of players, how they play for other teams, if they're going to be as good. But they're certainly in a great position. So in 7, you had the Bills. We all went Bills at 7. I think I should put them 7 just because I trust them. Again, they haven't been crazily impressive. I think the first few weeks, it was like, okay, that maybe is good. And then they dropped off. I know they obviously beat the Jets last night, which was huge. I'll ask you, Paul, if they'd lost to the Jets yesterday, would you have had them lower than 7th? And how far would you have dropped them? I think they're a strange team to try and rank because,
maybe a place or 2, maybe 8th or 9th. The drop because they started off, like I said, they started off on fire and then they've just tailed off there. And ultimately, I think a part of that is one of the reasons why they've made the move for Cooper today. So they drafted, obviously lost Diggs, traded free agency or trade? It was trade for Diggs, wasn't it? Free agency? Trade. One of the 2, the trade.
Yeah, traded for Diggs,
Trade Diggs away to the Texans, and then they drafted Keon Coleman late in the first round. And it's just not really there yet, is it? It's not really getting much production from him. And the expectation was that he would be a huge part of that offense. That might have been their own fucking fault for trading with the Chiefs again and trading and letting them get JV away here. I don't know. But it's just not there. I'm not saying Keon Coleman won't be good at some point, but it's just not there yet. And, you've got a team that should be maybe competing to get to the Super Bowl. You need to go get Josh Allen another weapon. And they've done it. And I know Cooper was kind of maybe been a bit checked out in Cleveland, dropping a lot of passes that we wouldn't expect him to drop from what we've seen of him over the years. I think all those problems will go away from him all of a sudden when he's got Josh Allen throwing in the ball. And I think it makes a big difference, to that offense, having someone like Amari Cooper. And that then may unlock Keon Coleman a little bit and Kincaid get going, because, again, he had a bit of a better game last night, but hasn't, he's been a bit of a disappointment so far, considering what we're expecting out of him. And, I still think they're a really, really good team. And, again, they've got a guy who can win a game.
Yeah, I think that's something. Yeah, I think that helps. Yeah, so the trade terms was a third and a seventh for Cooper and a sixth, so they didn't pay too much. I've seen reports they were not really in for Adams because they couldn't afford his contract this year, because I think because the Jets are paying it all, so they would have to take it. And obviously Cooper did that deal at the start of the year where they basically gave him a massive signing bonus. So it's another player, but the Browns paid loads, and it's on a different team. So and I was impressed with how good the defense actually looked with all the injuries. I think Sean McDermott is proving that he is one of the best defensive coaches, where he's still managed to get production out of a team where it feels like they've got it's more of a no-name kind of defense compared to others, but they're still showing up.
Yeah, they're getting ran on a bit more than I thought they would. And again, that potentially down to some injuries. They're pretty poor stopping the rushing. As you get into December onwards, you probably need to have sorted that out. So whether that's more moves or whatever they do, I don't know. But they're giving up 140 yards a game on the ground at the minute, and that's not great.
Yeah, and like I said, having a top 3 quarterback in this league certainly helps. So the 6th place was the 49ers. It might be my bias. And the opposite way, I actually had them at 9. Paul, you had them at 6, where they landed. And Byron, you had them at 5. I'll go with you, Byron. Why did you have them so high? And then I'll counterpoint how I feel about the Niners.
Charlie's het up about it, I'll tell you that. They've just been banged up when they've lost games, and I think coming out of it, they're going to be absolutely fine. I think they're still one of the best teams in the NFL. What did I have them at 6? I had them at 5. I think the top 6 that we have here is the Super Bowl winner will be from them 6. I would wager, and that's not exactly a bold call, but I just think this bunch is a cut above. I think the Niners, especially when they get McCaffrey back, but even just like having Ayuk back fit, Debo back fit, the line up and running as it should be. It's just such an ad. I'm more interested why they'd be 9. I'm not sure how you'd have ahead of them. I'm guessing the Packers you must have had ahead of them. And I just think the Niners are a more well-rounded team than any of the ones below, including the Bills.
Yeah, I had the Packers, Bills, Commanders above them. It was close. I just think, other than week 1, they've just been super frustrating. And they're just losing games they shouldn't lose, which I think other teams are not, where they've had 3 games leading by more than 10, and they've lost 2 of them, and they were close losing the 3rd one when they were winning by 20. So I think they've just lost that spark. Some of the players have dropped off. I don't know if that's the Super Bowl hangover effect. Players like Ayuk and obviously McCaffrey being out, and who knows when he's coming back. So it's definitely one of them where penciled in at 9, and then in 3 weeks' time they could go up to 5 or 6 if they see improving. They've obviously had some big injuries on the defense. The main defensive line, Hargreaves being out for the season. And I don't think the defense is as good as what people think. I think people just got a notion the 49ers defense is a great defense, but watching them this year, they've got some holes. They still have like the big time players with Warren and Bosa and Travis Ward. But yeah, they're just not being there. And I don't know, like obviously I love Kyle Shanahan, but like top 2 or 3 head coach. It's just annoying me a bit this year where is like against the Seahawks, they were down to their 3rd, 4th cornerback, and they're just not. It's just like, well, give Ayuk a chance 1-on-1, just like put it up there. Stop just doing these, these fancy screens. Like go for a run. Let's try and do a fancy screen and we're 3rd and 9, and then we're struggling. And even when it's 3rd and 9, we're just going for like a 10-yard crossing route. It's like, let Ayuk, we're paying him this much money. If he's 1-on-1 with the Seahawks 3rd, 4th cornerback, he should beat him. Let's start airing it. So that's just been trying to frustrate him, while other than week one, they haven't had that win where I'm like, okay, they're back at it. And I just worry because they've got like the Chiefs. Next, they've got the Cowboys. They've got a few of these teams where they need to start putting some of these wins. Like when you look at that 3-3, they should really be 5-1.
What are you worried about with the Cowboys at home? What are you worried about?
No, it should be the Cowboys, but then you're still at 4-4, and you've still got some big games like that we've talked about. Like the rest of the year, they've got just because where they actually finished in the division. So I think they've got the Ravens at some point. They'll have the Lions, the Bucks, the Packers, the Bears. All of these like the top 8 teams. They've still got to play them, and they're just losing some of these games where they shouldn't be losing. I feel like they've lost games which they should be 5-1 and be more comfortable, but now they're 3-3. So, like I said, it was close between them all. I just, it might just be my typical British pessimist instead of being an optimist. So we'll see how it goes going forward. So let's talk about the next teams. The Texans. Me and you, Paul, at 5. Byron, you're at 4. Anything about the Texans, Paul? Just perfectly fit in the 5th position.
Yeah, they've not really. Don't think they've fully got going yet, and they're 5-1. Yeah, I think maybe they got it's a big win against the Patriots. That's the kind of thing you'd expect them to do. Be kind of a team like that by 3 scores. So yeah, maybe they'll start rolling, and we'll learn more this week. They play the Packers this week, so I think that'll be a very good test for them to see where they really are. But kind of feels like if they'd have dropped a couple more games, given how they've been playing, I wouldn't have been surprised. But good teams find ways to win those games when they're not playing well, and the Texans have been doing that. So yeah, I think I've got them. They're my 3rd AFC team, so feels about right.
Yeah, we'll move on to the Ravens, who are 4th. So me and Paul at 3. Byron, you had them at 6, which I was surprised. The Ravens being at 6, below the Texans, for example, and the 49ers. When I think the last few weeks they've shown who they are, and I had them the 2nd best AFC team. So I was curious why I had them at 6. If there was a reason.
I think kind of not to be too simplistic again, because I think they are in that top tier. But like the Bills, I think you mentioned the Bills, sorry, you can run on them. I think the Ravens have beaten up teams that you can run on. The Cowboys, the Bills, the Bengals, Commanders. I mean, I'm pretty sure Paul could run on all of those at this point and not get tackled. So, although Paul can also beat a few lines by himself, so maybe I'm underselling him. But yeah, I think those teams are all just well set for how Baltimore want to play. The Bengals can't tackle anybody. The Commanders have got a fairly soft defense. It is outperforming generally, but they're not going to stand up to Baltimore's rush attack. The Bills you've already mentioned. Cowboys can't tackle, can't defend, can't stop anybody, period. So I think they've had a nice grouping of matchups. That Raiders, I think I'm happy to mark as an anomaly, the Raiders defeat. And Chiefs, I think the Chiefs give them a bit of a kick in, to be fair. I don't think that was as close as the scoreline suggested. So I still worry that they're not really well-rounded, the Ravens. I still have some issues about the O-line. I still have some issues about the defense as well, truthfully. When the going gets tough, if they'll be able to stop teams doing what they'd like to them. But I think they've just had a really nice run of fixtures. The Bills one was kind of the trap of the week when they played, and I was certainly wrong about that. And the Bills do have a bit of a soft underbelly, which the Ravens just went and kicked out, which is what they should do. But yeah, that's why I have the Ravens just a little lower, but I still have them as one of the elite teams. So again, I don't want to make out that it's a ding on them in any way. Like I say, if you're in that top 6 to me, you can win the Super Bowl. So
yeah, awesome. So 3rd, we have the unbeaten Vikings, which I think if we did this at the start of the year, they probably may have been in the bottom 8. How we certainly previewed the year and had no faith whatsoever. So me and Byron had them 2nd. Oh, you had them 4th, below the Ravens. What else can the Vikings do to get your love and bump them up a little bit after going undefeated and playing well every game? It feels like.
If they beat the Lions on Sunday, I think I would take them fully seriously. They could get to an NFC Championship game. When I look at I think the 3 I have ranked ahead of them have certainly recently been there, been to the postseason and won playoff games, multiple. Not seeing that with the Vikings. Yes, they've been brilliant so far. I've almost gone against them every week at this point just to try and catch that moment where they do drop off. I'm doing it again this week. But yeah, they've been very, very good. I just don't think they're the best team in the NFC. And that's ultimately where I guess where they could have got some ground is could I have had them ahead of the Lions? And no, I couldn't. I think just the two AFC teams are stronger than the Vikings overall. But yeah, remarkable what they've done and have achieved so far. Kevin O'Connell, great job so far. Sam Darnold, reborn, defense that's flying all over the shop from Brian Flores. It has been very, very impressive. And you know what? I fully expect them to make the postseason. Can they push the Lions and win the division? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Well, I don't know what's going to happen in the NFC North. All the teams are good, but yeah, wild to even think now 6 weeks in. Yeah, I think they're going to make the playoffs, which is crazy.
Yeah, what's crazy? They beat 3 out the top 8 teams we've got ranked here. So they beat the Texans, 49ers, and Packers.
Yeah.
So it's not like they've just beaten. There's been plenty of teams. Yeah, there's been plenty of teams who have started 5-0, and you're like, a bit like the Jags last year. I wasn't expecting too much of them going forward, but yeah, they've actually produced against big teams and blown the doors off some of them as well, especially that Texans win. So yeah, I had them second just because how impressive it looked. I don't think they can do anything else. The fact that Sam Darnold is going to be Sam Darnold when he wasn't even going to start, it was going to be JJ McCarthy. I can't. It's going to be crazy if Sam Darnold takes them to the playoffs and what the hell happens next year. That's obviously in the future to look forward to. But yeah, we've certainly been proven wrong on the Vikings, especially how we were last year. So the second place, or the highest ranked NFC teams, is the Detroit Lions. Paul, you had them second. Byron, you had them first. I actually had them fourth. I had the Vikings as the highest NFC. So let's go, Byron. Why have you gone as you had them number 1 on your power rankings of the Chiefs?
Yeah, I think I don't want to say I think they're a better football team, but I do. I need to say they're not banged up with injuries. They've lost the best pass rush for the season. Obviously, that counts a lot. But outside of that, I think it's hard to say they're better than the Chiefs 1 to 53 because that's maybe a little extreme. But their offense just ticks so well and it's so complementary that I don't really see who's going to slow them down. Like, I know they lost to the Bucs in what was such a weird game. I don't quite know how that happened, and it does feel like a blip, truthfully. They absolutely blew the doors off the Seahawks offensively. We know what they did to the Cowboys 2 days ago. This matchup, obviously, at the Vikings is going to be huge, but I just think the Lions they can do what they want on offense. They can push you around. They can throw the ball. Jameson Williams isn't ever probably going to be a fantasy wide receiver 1, but in terms of his usefulness to his team, he's not as important as a Amon-Ra because that's a bit extreme, but his ability on those play actions and then sweeps to just chip off 20, 30 yards in one play is absolutely ridiculous. He's doing it consistently this year after a weird start to his career. Goff's got his ups and downs, but I mean, which quarterbacks don't in this day and age? If you look at the teams we've got here, Mahomes is up and down. He's certainly not explosive anymore. I think that's because the way they want to play rather than how we can play. Sam Darnold, there's going to be ups and downs. I guarantee it. Stroud, I'll give you. Brock Purdy, I'll give you. Lamar, Josh Allen have ups and downs. Lamar less than Josh Allen, but they're still there. So I don't think that's a huge thing against the Lions that Jared Goff isn't perfect every week, because more often than not, he's more than serviceable. And Ben Johnson calls really good games to make the most of everything they have there. The Aiden Hutchinson injury is a worry, but again, I don't think there's a perfect team in the NFL this year. I know there's 2 of them that are 5-0, so they are perfect thus far. But I think the Vikings is kind of a master stroke of coaching. I think if you were to give them league average coaching, they would be a bottom 15 team or around 15 downwards team. The Chiefs, again, excellent coaching. some issues on offense. Rasheed Rice being out for the year is huge for them because he's really their only game-breaking wide receiver they have. It'll be interesting to see if they make a move like the Bills and the Jets have done. I think they probably should. But yeah, amongst some really elite top 6 teams, but all imperfect, I just think the Lions have got the most well-rounded and the most upside in a given week to just destroy you offensively.
Yeah, I had the Lions 4th. I think that Hutchinson injury dropped them down 1 or 2 spots for me, just because I think it's good. It's massive. Like there was concerns coming into the year, like who would be the secondary edge rusher, and if anything, you have to make it miss. You can call missing a couple of games, but to be out the full season, I know Dan Campbell was trying to play it off like if anyone could come back, he would. But it's like probably earliest he could go a Super Bowl, and he's actually going to be anyone up to that performance. I think it's massive. And now it's on, Aaron Glenn. Can he scheme up that defense to be an impact? I think like with Hutchinson, he was playing so well that scheme probably didn't matter as much. Yeah. While I think going forward, they'll have to scheme. So are they good enough? Can they prove that? I think it certainly helps that the defensive backs are a lot better. But yeah, I think that's a huge loss. I think if any of these like top, maybe not the Vikings, but if any of like the main players, because it feels like if you'd rank in their most important players, he'd certainly be in the top 3, top 5 of the Lions. And if one of them happened, like if Chris Jones went out, if like Chris Jones went out or Bosa went out, you would think, well, that's probably they'll be slipping down as well. So I think, it's massive for the Lions. That's why I had them at 4th. And just it's one of them teams why I ranked the team at the top, the Chiefs. Why them high? Just because they're winners. And I had them that where they just win. Even if they play bad, they win. Yeah. And I think that's just why I had them number 1 just ahead of the power rankings. Because I give a shout out to Byron as well. He's hit his bet of the Chiefs starting 5-0, which he mentioned in the AFC West preview. But yeah, I just think they just have that it factor where no matter what happens, they either win or they just about lose. And just how they've started this year, even with all the injuries, I expect them to keep going, carrying how they're doing. And I think their schedule is not even that crazy compared to some of the other teams. So, yeah, I just have the Chiefs 1, which was similar to you, Paul. You have the Chiefs at number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Things haven't gone well in terms of injuries, and they're not hit the stride yet, but they're still winning games. They beat some, what we've said are good teams already in terms of the Ravens. The Bengals is always a tough game. I know we've got them ranked low, but it's always a tough. Those Chief Bengals games are always close and always tough. Yeah, we'll see. They play the Niners in a Super Bowl rematch this week, which is probably one of the games of the week. But yeah, someone's got to go beat them for me to start changing. Even considering moving them from that number 1 spot at the minute. The 5-0 and the guy who's the best player in the league hasn't got going yet. There's only more to come from the Chiefs.
But Juju will get there.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit crazy with the Mahomes. It's like he's probably not. Obviously, if we do a QB ranking, he'll not be at the top. But he's always like considered to be the best player because he just does it when it matters. It's a strange skill he certainly has.
And you mentioned with the Chiefs going to go get anybody wide receiver wise. MVS has been cut from the Bills to make way for Amari Cooper.
Ooh. They brought Juju back. Maybe they bring MVS back. Could they get Kadarius Toney back from Cleveland? Maybe. I'm sure he's
playing their wide receiver 1 now at Cleveland.
I think David Njoku is their tight end and wide receiver 1.
That's the safety who's leading them for touchdowns. That's who the wide receiver 1 is now.
Right, so that's our ranking. We'll put these out on Instagram to see what other people think. Disagree with us, tell us that we're completely wrong, that what the hell we're doing. Yeah, we've also got individual rankings. I might not put them out just because credibility and all that, looking at Paul's rankings. So
why am I always catching the shot?
Because you got the Bengals at 3.
Because you got the Bengals at 10.
10, whatever.
Did you just say 3? Yeah,
I thought you said 3. Yeah,
maybe pre-season rankings. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Excellent. Joe, thanks very much for leading the way. That was the first episode of Good Teams Win Great Teams cover overtime. We'll be back at some point with the overtime series at, later in the season. But as always, go follow Good Teams Win Great Teams cover over on Spotify. You're probably already following it. Good Teams Win Great Teams cover. There. You'll be notified as they drop. GTC. Get the right one in. On YouTube, on Twitter, Instagram, X, TikTok, and you can follow along with all our post updates and bet cards as well. We'll see you for the preview that drops on Friday morning.